Hi there, it's Kevin with GatheringMagic.com here with this week's episode of our non-budget. This is going to be on Tuesdays. We're either going to upgrade a playing on a budget list to a non-budget version, or just showcase a deck for all of those of you that aren't on a budget or would like to see more competitive modern or standard brews. This week we're going to go back to my kind of pet deck. Everyone has a deck that is the deck they always go back to, their reliable deck, their go-to deck, and this is mine. Recently, it won me a grinder at the GP Las Vegas to earn my 2 buys, as well as I just went 4-1 in the preliminary Modern Festival. So basically, what the Modern Festival is, you can play it on MTGO. I believe it will be going on all this week, and there will be a tournament on Sunday, I think. Yes, I think it's on Sunday, this coming Sunday. And the winner is going to receive one of every Modern card ever printed, as well as a foil and a non-foil set of Modern Masters, as well as a foil and non-foil set of Modern Masters 2015. So that's a lot at stake. I mean, that's some pretty good prize support for that Sunday tournament. Now, how you get qualified for that tournament is you have to go at least 4-1 or better in a preliminary Modern Festivals qualifier. So anyway, that's what I entered, and I was able to go 4-1 with my first entry. So it's 10 tickets, I believe, and the prize support is pretty good. Beyond that, you get an Eternal Witness for just participating, and then a foil Eternal Witness. I think I can pop those up and show you. They're pretty cool alternate arts that you get from the... Yeah, so let's see. Show all versions, display... let's see. How do we find other versions? We'll show if I keep clicking them here. This should show it here. All right, so there it is. There's the Eternal Witness alternate art, the foil one that I got for going 4-1 or better, and then you get a regular one just for participating. So if you do play MTGO, I think it's a great time, a great time to play some Modern, as that's a pretty sweet card. Eternal Witness is seeing a ton of play with Collected Company right now, and other decks like that. I use it in my Tooth and Nail deck, and just an all-around great participation card. Well, anywho, so this is again my go-to deck. The sideboard and the main board change a lot. I do a lot of videos on my own Rogue Deck Builder channel with Soul Sisters. It has won me a PTQ before, so it was the way that I got onto the Pro Tour. Like I said, most of my success in Magic has been from this deck. As far as playing on a budget is concerned, this was basically the first budget deck. I've told this story before. One of the things that happened to me is I had about an $8,000 collection stolen out of my car. At the time, I was in a really rough place in life. I had just quit my job, just saved up a bunch of money and quit my job to become a personal trainer. And kind of, I quit because I couldn't study. I had this awful swing shift that it just really, like, if anyone's ever had a swing shift before, it's impossible to sleep when you get off a swing shift. And so I just couldn't study and couldn't focus. So I saved up a bunch of money and then was concentrating on going back to school to become a personal trainer. Was really into fitness at the time. And then my dog, which is really important to me at the time, he was getting really sick. And then we found I had cancer, and it required a lot of an operation. He had a tumor that was basically blocking his small intestines, so basically the food couldn't get through, and really sad experience. So anyway, I'd gathered up all my Magic cards, and we were going to go to I was going to go to all the stores in Salt Lake and just start piecing out, selling what I could to try to come up with this money to get my dog the surgery, the treatment that he needed. And just a stressful moment. I just had all the cards in my car, and then went to the vet, and then forgot about them overnight. And I parked in the driveway. We don't have a garage, and so I parked in the driveway, and some punk busted my car windows and stole the backpacks. So I lost about $8,000 worth of cards. Was really bummed out. Didn't even want to play Magic anymore, and it was basically this in another deck. What I did is I quit for like a month after that, and then got back into Magic because I really didn't want some punks to just ruin my experience of something that brought so much joy into my life. So I basically bought an event deck at the time that had a Blade Splicer and a Birthing Pod in it, I believe. This is back when New Phyrexia, and started making just a budget Golem pod which I was able to win 4 FNMs in a row and get the Lingering Souls promos at the time, which I was able to sell for upgrades on my little budget Golems deck. So a little bit past that, our store wanted to do modern tournaments. So the stoner came to me and said, hey, can you build us a modern deck and play in this? We're going to start doing modern Mondays, and we'd really like you to play in it. And do you think you can build a deck? I'm like, okay, I can build a budget deck. Don't know how well it will be. But I just thought I'd seen this deck before, especially when it was in Standard, just the Soul Warden and Soul Attendant with the Ajani's Pridemate. And at the time, I don't even think I had all the Serra's Ascendants. They weren't expensive anyway. I think the most expensive card in the deck was Path to Exile at the point. Like, Rangers were very inexpensive, Spectral Processions were inexpensive, Honor of the Peers were inexpensive, and it was pretty easy just using basic planes at the time, and I was able to win some Modern Masters tournaments with it. So it was just kind of all these things kind of add up to me playing Soul Sisters. And then I happened to actually be cleaning out my apartment. I was actually moving from Salt Lake at the time and had some store credit left and entered this into a PTQ with my store credit and ended up winning the PTQ and then going to the Pro Tour. And then, that really was a catalyst to my YouTube channel. So I have a lot of love for this deck. So I'm really excited to spotlight it and show you these won't be live games though. There's going to be the replays of the games with Soul Sisters. Now, really quickly here, I know this is going to be a long little deck tech, and a lot of you might have already lost interest, but this is my version that I'm running right now that I think is the best position for the metagame, and I think I would make some changes just based upon the experience of this last preliminary that I played in, or I think it's just a qualifier, not even is what they're calling it. But one of the things would be to add some Ghost Quarters. This card just was incredibly good all night. It can take care of cards like Creeping Corrosion, or against Tron, you can take out one of their specific Tron pieces. You'll see in Amulet Bloom, I was able to use Ghost Quarter to set them back by taking out one of their bounce lands. And then again, like I said, like Creeping Tar Pit, or Raging Ravine, or Specialist Celestial Colonnade versus the UWR. Ends up being that usually it's Celestial Colonnades that will get you, and if you do have just a land that can answer it, that's huge against that matchup. So you may notice I don't have any Martyrs in here. It's not a Martyr proc deck. There's a lot of different flavors of Soul Sisters. One of those is Martyr proc, what they use is Proclamation of Rebirth, and a lot more control cards to get back a lot of 1-drops. This one is just going to be it's kind of a mix between those two. It's just basically utilizing the Soul Sisters to their advantage. And currently I'm running all 12 of the sisters. So it's a huge list. So it's the Soul Warden, Soul's Attendants, and Auriok Champion. Auriok Champion would be my favorite card in this entire deck. It's the best card by far. So whenever I see people's Soul Sisters list does not use the Auriok Champion, it really makes me roll my eyes, because this is the MVP. It is the difference between making Burn a very, very easy matchup to actually not that, like with Searing Blaze, when they take out a Soul Attendant, you can actually be far behind since we don't have Martyr of the Sands in this list. It's Auriok Champion that comes down and stabilizes you until you can start getting value out of the rest of your creatures and yeah, just basically, like I said, stabilize. And it does an amazing job versus both Grixis, Delver, or any sort of UR Delver list or Jund list. This guy can't be Abrupt Decayed. He can't be Lightning Bolted, or she, I guess, can't be Lightning Bolted. And then you do still have to worry about cards like Golgari Charm, but Auriok Champion is just an amazing, amazing card versus those particular matchups. So the 1-drop slot, again, this is going to be Serra's Ascendants and the Soul Sisters, with the best removal spell in the game in Modern now being Path to Exile. At the 2-drop slot, you have a very, very powerful card in Ajani's Pridemate, the best draw. Now the best draw since we don't have Martyr of the Sands. It used to be you could go first turn Serra Ascendant, second turn play Martyr of the Sands, sack it, and then have a 6/6 flying lifelinker. That is unable to do that now in the current build. I just thought that Martyr was too clunky now, and we have more cards that help us get a lot of gaining life just out of all the Soul Sisters. So your best draw is actually going to be Soul Attendant, or one of the Soul Sisters, into an Ajani's Pridemate, and then you have a 3/3 Pridemate if your opponent tries to cast anything as a 4/4. And this card is very easy to start outclassing Tarmogoyfs and other big creatures. Honor of the Pure is just amazing in this deck because we are running a full play set of Spectral Processions and 3 Secure the Waste. So Honor of the Pure is going to make all of your this deck is really known for being a 3-for-1 or a bunch of like 3-for-1 cards like Ranger of Eos and Spectral Procession, or even higher. And the way to pump those up, you're getting so much value out of Honor of the Pure. Then we have Ranger,
of Eos, this guy is basically just going to grab you a Soul Attendant or a Serra Ascendant based upon necessity. It really refills up your hand. And in the past, I have had like cards like Dried Militant in the main board for a Ranger to tutor up, or even Martyr the Sands. I'm still not against running one or two of those in the deck. It's just based upon preference and based upon metagame. If Burn were huge, I'd probably run more Martyrs, but Martyr's not a card I actually even like against Delver, because Delver you just barely need to stabilize before then they have to start playing more of the control route rather than the tempo route. And yeah, so it's just sometimes gaining 10 life or 12 lifers, or 9 or 12 or 15 life versus Delver isn't what you need. It's some board presence. And tutoring up a Martyr isn't the way to go. I'd way rather have like a Serra's Ascendant or one of the Soul Sisters. Then Spectral Procession, again, it's like a 3-for-1. It chump blocks until you stabilize. It can actually be a very aggressive draw when you go onto the Pure into Spectral Procession. Now you have 6 damage on board. And one of the great things about Spectral Processions is it gives you enough cards for the Windbrisk Heights. Windbrisk Heights has the Hideaway ability that you can cast a card underneath it if you attack with 3 or more creatures. Very good to find like a Ranger or more Spectral Processions underneath, and it's again, Soul Sisters just keeps on coming. I've had cards like Squadron Hawks in here before that have been cut. It really saddened me because I finally got my 4th F&M promo right as I was deciding to cut them from my deck. And then the last card in here again is Secure the Waste. This card is very powerful, instant speed. It makes all those draws where you get mana flooded a little bit easier to deal with, as each one of those excess lands is going to be a white warrior creature token, gaining you life off the Soul Sisters, or getting bigger off the Honor of the Pure, or once again getting that activation off the Windbrisk Heights. Onto the sideboard. Sideboard I get the most questions about, and basically I'm going to tell you this changes a lot depending on the metagame. Now, if I was afraid of more of like the Tron list, I would probably put some more hate versus Tron in the sideboard. If I am worried about more of like Jund variants, you could find me putting in more ways to fight attrition. There's plenty of other ways, maybe even up and count of Return of the Ranks. I have a binder full of just cards that I have put in my sideboard in the past. I mean, they are very, very. I've had like Rest in Peace before. I've had Leyline of Sanctity. Right now, I will just show you the cards that I am using, which one of the newest additions is Mark of Asylum. This is a very, very good card against Grixis Delver and against Twin and against Tron and against anything that uses like Pyroclasm or Lightning Bolt or Anger of the Gods, Scred Red type things. You put this down, it basically turns all your guys into Auriok Champions, which is very, very good for just 2 mana, preventing all non-combat damage that would be dealt to creatures you control. This actually even shuts off Olivia versus Jund. Other than they can still... Actually, they have to do damage to turn into a vampire, I believe. So yeah, it completely shuts down Olivia, which is really, really... Olivia's one of the cards you struggle against versus Jund, as well as Jund Charm and Lightning Bolts, and then Electrolyze out of like Grixis Delver, or Kolaghan's Charm, or Kolaghan's Command off of Grixis Delver. Mark of Asylum at least gets rid of that damage to creature clause in any one of those. So I'm running 3 of Stony Silences. These are actually more in here against Tron than they are against Affinity. This is just a blowout if you get it versus Affinity. But Affinity tends to be a very easy matchup to begin with. And Stony Silence is just more insult to injury against that deck. Suppression Field, in the past, I've had a lot more of these in the sideboard. This is good against Twin. It's good against the Jund in a way. A lot of people that run a lot of fetch lands, you can really shut them down. One of the things that Suppression Field did versus one of my opponents at the grinder is I was able to get a Suppression Field, and then he just kept drawing fetch lands and couldn't actually fetch them because I went turn 2 Suppression Field. So turn 1, I'm on the turn 1. Turn 1 he plays land. Turn 2 I play Suppression Field, and he literally went fetch land, fetch land, fetch land, fetch land, fetch land, and could not crack them. He never had the mana to crack them, and so Suppression Field locked him out. Because it does say that activated abilities, unless their mana abilities cost 2 more, fetching a land is not a mana ability. So it helps against... Suppression Field's really good against, again, the Twin, because then they can't activate the... tapping the Splinter Twin is an activation to put a token, so they have a finite amount of tokens they can put out. It works really well against like the Malaria and Company combo when they try to sacrifice a bunch of their cards. They can only do that a limited amount of time as well. And yeah, so Here's the biggie, and this is what I highly suggest right now. There's a lot of decks out here that are kind of these one-trick pony decks. You even have Goryo's Vengeance a little bit with Goryo's Vengeance, because the way they're building them now are really, they don't need to connect with the legendary creatures that they cheat out. It's just trying to cheat out of Bergamos and then discard cards. So Celestial Flare wouldn't work against that. But Celestial Flare does a great job against two specific decks that in the past have been a lot of times you want a sideboard that particularly hoses out a matchup that you feel you are very, very far behind and you want to find that card that puts you in a disadvantage into an advantage. And Celestial Flare is that perfect card. Two decks that this deck struggles against are Boggles, which is the green-white enchantments. They try to gear up one guy with a ton of enchantments and then swing in. And so Celestial Flare does a great job against that. As well as Infect, the same thing. They just try to pump one dude, and then you can Celestial Flare away their Glistener Elf or their Unblockable, their Blighted Agent. So Celestial Flare is a pivotal piece against those matchups that can just be a blowout if your opponent A, isn't suspecting it, or B, just can't play around it to begin with, because it is a sacrifice effect. It forces them to sacrifice it, so giving it protection or indestructible or like the Umbras does not work with Celestial Flare. Sundering Growth is just an all-around card. I'm thinking about going up maybe one more of these because it's so versatile right now. You can kill. There's so many artifacts and enchantments that are problematic. You can actually kill like an Expedition map against Tron. Affinity, it ends up being just another way to destroy a creature, like a very good creature. It takes care of Spellskite and then allows you to pass something. And I just really think it's a very versatile card. Now with my newest build, I'm probably going to cut Sundering Growth for Disenchant. Sundering Growth is just double white, and in case I do have a 1/1 creature out, I can populate it, one of these tokens. And so it was just strictly better when I had when everything in my deck tapped for white. But now that I'm probably going to put in more Ghostly Quarters, I am not going to, I might get stuck on needing to use double white and not have the double white, and therefore I think Disenchant will be a little bit better. So speaking of Ghost Quarter, one other combo with Ghost Quarters, it can't help you thin out your deck by destroying your own Flagstones of Trokair and going and allowing you to get two planes out of that, as you're getting one off the Ghost Quarters and one off the Flagstones of Trokair. Alrighty, so one of the last cards in here is going to be Wrath of God. I've put one in the sideboard now for Malira and Company, Elves, and Merfolk is usually the matchups that I like it against. And usually when I bring in Wrath of God, I bring in Return of the Ranks, and I kind of want a second Wrath of God. I just couldn't find the spot. I'm hoping that Tron starts seeing less and less play, so therefore it will free up possibly 2 slots. I want to keep 1 slot of Stony Silence just because I have no artifacts, and there's a lot of decks that just suffer just because I'm hitting out Tron so much that actually activate a lot of artifacts. And but if I can go down in these, I will put another Wrath of God slot, because that's the way that you beat. Merfolk tends to be a pretty hard matchup. Wrath of God puts you in the advantage there, and especially coupled with Return of the Ranks, where you can get everything back, because basically all of your cards, your 2 finishers in the deck, are going to be converted mana cost 2 or less. So that's going to be the Ajani's Pridemates and the Serra's Ascendants. And another good thing about Return of the Ranks is when all the things enter the battlefield, they see each other. And I've gained some incredible amounts of life off of Return of the Ranks in the past. So it's strictly better than Immortal Servitude, as you're using such a spread of 2 and 3 cards. When Squadron Hawk was in the deck, this was a lot better, as you usually had 4 creatures in the graveyard. But now with Secure the Waste and Spectral Processions, the card is getting weaker and weaker, and I don't know if it's going to have a full-time place in the sideboard. Last but not least is a card that I'm thinking about moving a main board. If I were to move a main card board out, it'd be Secure the Waste for an Archangel of Thune. I've seen a lot of other lists use a lot of Archangel of Thunes in the main board, but that makes you go up in land count, and I just think dilutes the deck a lot. This can be a blowout versus certain matchups, so you get it out versus decks like Merfolk again, or any sort of like green-white strategy that clogs up the board like you, Malira and Company, Elves. Archangel of Thune can actually put them on a faster clock than what they can get you on, as like you cast Archangel of Thune, if you have like 1 or 2 Soul Attendants out, you're automatically getting counters on your creatures because the Archangel of Thune will come to play, and then those will trigger, and then the life, whenever you gain life, trigger will go on the stack and then give all your guys +1/+1 counters. And it's just, though, it's one of those things with 21 lands, it's very hard to get out. Like, optimally, you want to see this under a Windbrisk Heights, and then cast it off of that by attacking with 3 creatures, and then actually use that as a combat trick. But again, those lists with like 4 Archangel of Thune seem very, very awkward to me, because it's so many times you're going to have Archangel of Thune in your hand and not be able to cast it. And this card, a lot of games, even when you do cast it, ends up being win more. And what I mean by that is you're probably already winning. And there are a few situations, though, this does win the game. You'll see one of those in the video replays coming up. So hope you're still with me. That is a very detailed analysis of Soul Sisters. Any questions you have, I'll try to get them in the comments. Please remember to tag me, though, as this is not my channel, so a lot of times it doesn't show up in my notifications that someone has commented on this video. So if you want to tag me and ask me specific questions about Soul Sisters, I think I'm pretty well qualified at this point to answer questions about Soul Sisters. Again, I've had a phenomenal win-loss record with it. At one point, when Delver and Burn were the go-to decks, it had an 85% win percentage on MTGO, just really farming out those Delver and Burn decks. And I still think it's pretty good positioned in the metagame with a lot of creature-based decks, Affinity, Burn, Grixis, Delver. You'll see a bunch of those. Just a lot of these matchups that I'm going to show you are pretty smooth sailing. And I did get lucky in some of the matchups, so we'll talk about those as the matches progress. Anyway, this has been Kevin with GatheringMagic.com. Thanks for watching.